So here's the story about one of the weirdest meetings I've ever been in, and it involves Sean Astin. Now in Hollywood, because everyone is aware of who everyone else is, sometimes you'll run into somebody and maybe you don't really know them, but you feel like you do. And this was the situation that I had with Sean Astin. My wife and I were running this TV show for Nickelodeon called See Dad Run. We had created the show, and Scott Baio was the star of the show, and we were going to Beverly Hills for this thing called the TCA. And so we were there to present our new show, See Dad Run, to the television critics.
Today we're going to introduce you to a new family comedy for Nick at Night, starring and executive produced by Scott Baio, called See Dad Run.
And also Nickelodeon was pushing their new version of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which starred Sean Astin. Now, I have a lot of friends who know Sean. In fact, one of the guys who was just on my podcast, Mark Marshall, was the Goonie Wrangler. He knows Sean really well. Who was the Goonie who was hardest to wrangle?
Oh, I don't want to name names because that would be indiscreet, Sean Astin.
I've worked with his mom, Patty Duke, on a TV show called Karen's Song, which was on Fox. And I also worked with his dad, John Astin, in a TV movie back in 1973. Probably even before he was born. So it's like I know his mom and his dad, I know his friends, but I've never met Sean Astin. So we're at the TCAs and Sean Astin is there. I mean, he had just come off stage and his presentation was really good, and I complimented him on the presentation, and we started talking, and he wanted to know what we were there for because we haven't done our presentation. So I told him, and he goes, "Oh, Scott, I know Scott." It was really great to meet him, and we exchanged numbers, and it was like one of those things where it's like, oh, cool, I guess I'm now friends with Sean Astin, which is great. So we finished the TCA, and my wife and I go back to Paramount Studios where we're shooting See Dad Run because we're going to have a network run-through of the show, which is where the network comes and watches a run-through of the episode, and then we talk to the director afterwards in the producer's office to give the director notes, and the network gives notes. And so we get back to Paramount Studios, we watch the run-through, and who do I see on the stage? This Sean Astin. I'm like, going, buddy, what are you doing here? And he goes, oh, I decided to come say hi to Scott. So the rehearsal ends, and so now we're all going back to the executive producer's office where we're going to give notes to the director. Now, this is where it gets really, really weird, okay? So the director that week was a director by the name of David DeLuise. Now, of course, you know the name. He played the dad on Wizards of Waverly Place. He's Dom DeLuise's kid. He's a great actor, and he's also a really good director. He had directed a bunch of Wizards of Waverly Places, and so we were having him direct an episode of See Dad Run. So we were going back to the producer's office to give David DeLuise notes for this particular episode. Also, what was really weird was one of our producers was Jason Hervey. You know him from The Wonder Years and 1,000 other things, but Jason Hervey had a production company and he worked with Scott a lot. So Scott and Jason were producers on the show. So Jason Hervey was there to give notes. It's myself, Scott Baio, David DeLuise, and Jason Hervey. And then in the corner of the room, I see Sean Astin, and Sean Astin's there. When I see Sean Astin, I go, what is he doing in here? But then I realize, oh, well, no, he's Scott's buddy. So obviously Scott had him come in. So now we got Sean Astin, myself, Scott Baio, Jason Hervey, and David DeLuise in this room talking about this episode. Now, I clocked it pretty immediately going, wow, this is a lot of teen actors in one room. Now, we're not teen actors now, but we were. So we do the whole meeting, and the meeting ends, and at the end of the meeting, Scott does one of these to me, and I come over to him, and he says to me, he looks at me, he goes, why was Sean Astin here? And I go, what are you talking about? You invited him. He goes, I didn't invite Sean Astin here. And so he calls over Jason Hervey. He goes, Jason, come here. He goes, did you invite Sean Astin into the room? And he goes, no, I was wondering what Sean Astin was doing in the room as well. And so then we called over David DeLuise because maybe David knows him because I'm sure their dads know each other. So we call over David DeLuise and we say, David, did you invite Sean Astin here? And he goes, no. And so none of us invited Sean Astin into this meeting, but sure enough, there he was. So finally, we just called Sean over and said, hey, Sean, come here. And we said, what, why are you here? And he goes, oh, everyone was so excited to come into this room and I was just following along and then no one stopped me. So here I am. I'm sorry. Did I bother anyone? And no, of course not. He didn't bother anyone. He's awesome. But it was just hysterical that here we are, we're having this meeting, we're giving notes to a director, and Sean Astin is in, the corner of the room. It's like in Hollywood, it's so hard to break in, but once you're kind of in, apparently you can just show up at any meeting anywhere, and if you've got, a familiar face, people won't ask questions until it's over. So that's my Sean Astin story, and he is a really sweet guy. I mean, listen to the podcast with Mark Marshall. He tells great stories about Sean, and that is my Sean Astin story.